All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little 49er video. Stuff's about to get real in Santa Clara with Brandon Aiyuk. We're going to talk about it next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. Pig and a Pickle, go get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this video is also sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of The Krug Show. That's right. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. I am loving using Better. It's fantastic. Download the app below and make sure you use the promo code NINERS, N-I-N-E-R-S, to get the first deposit matched up to $250. So once again, type in NINERS, N-I-N-E-R-S, at the promo code, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $250. And thanks to Better for being the official daily fantasy sponsor of The Krug Show. All right, let's talk about Brandon Aiyuk. This is getting good. I mean, this thing is about to get absolutely incredibly juicy. Let's just get right into it. I mean, things are about to get real in Santa Clara as it pertains to Brandon Aiyuk's contract hold in, hold out, whatever way you want to describe it, from 49er camp. Aiyuk was, quote, holding in, right? He was holding in, which means that he was attending meetings, showing up at the facility. Why did he hold in as opposed to hold out? To simply avoid the fines. And so he did that. He held in, he showed up, he was not fined. The 49ers played along up until now because it seemed like the prudent thing to do to avoid unnecessary conflict between Aiyuk and the team in the midst of contract negotiations. That's kind of how I would term it. But now we are officially in what they would describe NFL regular season mode. And the 49ers really can't have Aiyuk taking up a very, very valuable roster spot if they don't, and they don't want to, and of course, if he's not going to pay, if he's not going to practice, he's not going to play, and he's taking up a roster spot, that already is a major loss. But then, of course, then there's the money part of it. You're going to pay the guy not to play? Of course not. So, if you look at this situation, in the regular season, Aiyuk counts against the 49ers 53-man roster. And so if he's not going to show up, they can't have him on the 53-man roster. And they're certainly not going to pay him his game check if he's not going to practice or play. So it's kind of up to Aiyuk at this point. And the 49ers brass have essentially ended his holdout. Both Shanahan or ended his hold in, I should say, and kind of created a holdout. Shanahan and Lynch both talked today. Shanahan talked first, and he said that he hoped Aiyuk would practice. He was perfectly clear about that. He's like, I hope he practices. I hope he's out there. He's been cleared by our doctors. So that has kind of been the point. The Niners doctors have signed off on this phantom back injury that Aiyuk has supposedly had, just all in the name of, allowing him to comfortably avoid these fines and to keep the hold in going on. But today, it sounds like their expectation has now changed from you're holding in to our doctors have cleared you. We expect you to practice. And he didn't show up for practice. So he could be fined. He subsequently could be suspended by the team. Shanahan was asked, has Aiyuk done any football-related activities with any Niner representative over the last month? And he said no. And then let's hear Shanahan. I thought this was interesting because he voluntarily said this. He basically said, hey, look, all the options are on the table. So here's Kyle Shanahan just kind of voluntarily throwing out that the Niners still maintain all of the options that they've maintained since the beginning of this thing. Here's Kyle Shanahan.
Now, has this reached a point where he could play on his fifth-year option without a revised contract?
Just like I think I've said from the beginning, it's reached a point where all options could happen, and nothing has changed on that.
So there you go. There's Shanahan, where he's like, hey, it's reached a point where all options are possible. All options are possible. So what are you taking from that? I think 49ers fans need to take from that it's a distinct possibility that the 49ers are going to trade Brandon Aiyuk. So that's what he meant when he said all options are possible. What are the options? Play on the fifth-year option. I think that's a non-starter for Aiyuk. I don't think the Niners want to force him into that for the discontent that he'll express probably throughout the year. So I don't think that's a good option. Then the other options are trade him or extend him at your price, or extend him at his price, or extend him at some price that's palatable for both of you. That would be the ideal solution. But that's going to be interesting, where, basically for Shanahan to say all the options are on the table, he's basically telling everybody, hey, that we could still trade this guy. And then the question was asked, will the 49ers discipline Brandon Aiyuk if he fails to practice? And Shanahan said, we'll deal with that when it happens. It just happened. It just happened. So now that means that we are waiting for the 49ers' next move. That's what Shanahan said today. He said, we'll deal with that if and when it happens. If he's healthy and he opts not to practice, we'll deal with it if and when it happens. It happened today. What's the next move? What's the Niners' counter? What is the 49ers' reaction to the fact that that Aiyuk didn't practice today, and their doctors have deemed him healthy enough to practice? That's the million-dollar question. Kyle was also asked, hey, Kyle, if he practices, is that an indication that a deal is forthcoming or looming or imminent, that we could actually see a deal completed between the Niners and Aiyuk if we see him on the practice field? And he's like, no, not necessarily. He said, just because he practices doesn't mean that we're necessarily getting closer to a deal. So that was Shanahan. Then we had a chance to talk to Lynch, who looks really tired. And Shanahan does as well. Both these guys look totally worn out by all these holdouts and the short off season and losing the Super Bowl. And they look like it's mid-season and it's the beginning of the season. Lynch came out and he said, hey, we'll see if he practices today. We'll see if he's here. We'll see if he said he's here today. We'll see if he's out on the practice field. So he was there at the facility today, but he didn't practice. This is the situation. The question was asked to John Lynch, what if he doesn't practice? And he says, we'll deal with that. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. If Aiyuk doesn't practice, then we'll deal with that. He didn't practice. So now we're waiting on Shanahan and Lynch. Lynch says, if he doesn't practice, we'll deal with it. Shanahan said that we'll deal with that when it happens. If Aiyuk decides to continue to not practice, it happened. This thing is coming to a head. This thing is about to get serious. They're either going to get this thing done in the next 24 to 48 hours, or it's going to blow up and this guy's going to be traded. The other part of the Lynch presser that how could you not notice is he was talking about the communication with Trent Williams. And he's like, the communication's been good. He's like, yeah, there's been good communication with Trent. And immediately Grant asked the question, how would you term the communication with Brandon? And he's like, there's communication. So he left off the good. So it's pretty clear that, either the 49ers aren't digging Aiyuk. Mark Schlereth, who I think is probably close with the Shanahans, called Aiyuk's hold-in chicken shit. He didn't respect it. I don't know if Schlereth speaks for himself. He doesn't speak for Kyle, but I wouldn't. If you told me Kyle agrees with Schlereth, I probably wouldn't find that hard to believe. There's clearly there was another part of the presser today where Kyle said, Kyle was asked, are you optimistic? And he's like, I'm always optimistic when you have two sides that, that will sit down and hammer it out, as if to say that, like maybe there aren't two sides that will sit down and hammer it out for Aiyuk, just for Trent. So it's really interesting to see these holdouts or hold-ins, whatever you want to call them, these contract impasses through two different lenses, the Trent Williams lens and the Brandon Aiyuk lens. Trent Williams wants more money. Brandon Aiyuk wants more money. The Niners, have Trent in a totally different category than Aiyuk. And now Aiyuk did what we didn't know if he was going to do. He decided to, basically not practice. And now it's the 49ers move. What are they going to do? Are they going to penalize him? Are they going to fine him? Are they going to hold him are they going to hold the fines over him and make him pay his fines? Or are they going to wipe away Brandon Aiyuk's fines? Is there, and then when Lynch was asked, is there good communication with Aiyuk? And he's like, there's communication. Why not just say the communication's not been good? So that was as clear as day. This is clearly coming to a head. If you ask me, based on what I'm listening, watching, what I think is going to happen here, when Shanahan said all options are on the table, one of those options is trading Brandon Aiyuk. And as much as I don't want to see it, I think they're going to wind up trading Brandon Aiyuk. I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up being a Pittsburgh Steeler in the next day or two. Wouldn't surprise me if it was just draft pick compensation coming back. It's a colossal fail by the 49ers if that is indeed the case. But I think things are about to get real, because the Niners essentially took his hold in today and said, hey, our doctors cleared you, so you're no longer holding in. We expect you to practice. And now he could accrue fines. And will they fine him? And will they hold him to those fines? And will this make the entire relationship go south? And will this thing come to a head? And will the Niners pull the trigger? I mean, on a trade, have the Niners not pulled the trigger on a trade because they think they need Aiyuk to win the Super Bowl? Have the Niners not pulled the trigger on a trade for Aiyuk because they don't like what the Steelers or Commanders or whatever team they're talking to is offering them? It really, what's it about? Is it about that they just were hoping to kiss and make up with Brandon, and they just, because I don't like making trades with a gun to my head. This is football. Guys get hurt all the time. I think a better solution than just giving in and saying, screw it, we'll take our second and third round draft choice and hand Brandon Aiyuk in his prime to the Pittsburgh Steelers is just let him sit. Just ignore him, let him sit, and he'll either come back and play on that fifth-year option, or maybe a wide receiver will get hurt in the next month, and maybe the dynamics will change as far as a deal is concerned. I don't see any other real solution. I mean, to me, a great solution, I don't know if this is a solution, but one great solution that I would be excited about as a 49er fan is if they just said, you know what, let's trade Aiyuk and more draft capital to Cincinnati, and let's go after Jamar Chase. I mean, Jamar Chase, pretty bitter situation there in Cincinnati. He's holding out. Jamar Chase is a star. He's better than Aiyuk. In some ways, if you want to give the team a shot in the arm, you take away Brandon Aiyuk, you give them a second and a third round pick, and it's going to be a morgue. And people are going to be like, we just lost a major asset, a major part of our team for draft pick compensation we don't get to realize for a year. So you trade him for a second and a third, and everybody's depressed. You trade him in a package deal with other picks and assets for Jamar Chase, and the vibe is celebratory, and the vibe is totally different, and I think the team's energized by that. It's just my idea. Why would Cincinnati trade Jamar Chase? He's only the best receiver in pro football. But it seems like his holdout is contentious in Cincinnati there as well. So today, things got real in Ninerland. The Niners basically went up to Brandon Aiyuk and said, oh, you're holding in? We're yanking your sheets. You're not holding in. Our doctor cleared you. You don't have a back problem anymore. We expect you to practice. Oh, you're not going to practice? Well, now the question is, what's next? And something is coming next. And that something is either fines, rhetoric, new rules or a big old-fashioned trade that sends Brandon Aiyuk out of town. But Shanahan said it today, and Lynch said it as well. Shanahan said, you know what? If he doesn't practice, we'll deal with that if and when it happens. It happened. Lynch said, you know what? If he doesn't practice, we'll deal with that then. That happened today. John and Kyle, it's your move. Everybody's watching. And there's not a lot of solutions here. You can laugh at that Jamar Chase solution, but at least that's a solution that gets you out of it with a better receiver and a fan base that's excited about the season ahead. I'd love to see the Niners come up with a solution that makes them a better football team and their fan base is energized and excited. That's going to be really difficult to do out of this situation. That's why I suggested the Jamar Chase trade. Because, you'd be giving away more assets, but at least you're getting a great receiver. And it's a fresh slate for him here. It's a fresh slate for Brandon there. And you know what? There you go. Otherwise, I don't see a solution. I mean, what are the Steelers really going to offer you? James Daniels, a second-round pick, Dan Moore, a third. I mean, that's not worth Aiyuk. The fans will riot, and they'll go to town. They'll be super upset if the Niners trade Brandon Aiyuk for just middling talent. If they trade him for draft picks, that's a loss. You can't trade him for draft picks. You can't trade him for middling players. You got to get a really good young player in return. I don't think that's probably possible at this point. I don't think Pittsburgh is of the mindset to give you a good young player in return. Probably Washington isn't either. So to me, the best plans are either try to get a bigger deal and get Jamar Chase, hold on to him and let him sit and stew as you hope some other receiver around the league maybe gets hurt and there's a new need somewhere else, or ignore him altogether and wait for him to come back on the fifth-year option. And really create some bad waves. But there's not a lot of good options right now. And today was a significant day because yesterday he was holding in and the Niners were kind of helping him look the other way. Wink, wink. He's got a back injury. Today that hold in ended and now he's officially holding out and the Niners doctors have cleared him and he's accruing fines. So this has just gotten very, very real. And John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, it's your move. All right, thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. This live stream and video always sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of The Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below and make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $250. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.